Today it's time to look at some of the weirdest and craziest exploits and glitches in Hypixel Skyblock history. Now I just want to say, I'll only be going over these glitches and exploits that don't work, that have already been patched, so don't try them. Anyway, Skywalk has had its fair share of glitches and exploits and things like that. A lot of them evolving from updates. Now, obviously they do test things, when they bring out updates. But sometimes maybe the testing isn't as thorough as it needs to be, and bad things happen. If you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS. It gets yourself 5% off. Nowadays, if you want to fly around on your private island, most people have booster cookies anyway, which give this ability as almost just like a side ability. However, before booster cookies were a thing back in the day, people would either use a phoenix pet if they were really rich, or they would use, mushroom soup, which obviously requires you to either buy mushroom soup or gather the materials to make it. If you drink mushroom soup on your island, it will then basically grant you a little timer on the right of your screen. And of course that timer is basically the time you've got left to actually fly, and obviously when that timer depletes and goes to nothing, you're not able to fly until you drink more soup. Now it turns out when this mushroom soup was first introduced to the game, the timer would actually save anywhere, not just on your private island, but anywhere in Skyblock. Meaning that basically people could just fly around in the hub, or wherever they like to. Granted, this isn't something that happened recently, but it would be a pretty funny sight just to see everybody flying around the hub. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, become part of the 25%, there's no reason not to. Also, you should join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of every single video. Okay, next up, you know how Hypixel has obviously its regular server and then also an alpha server for testing new updates? Well, on the alpha server you have, it's essentially the same profile, but it's completely different. Like, if you were to, void your Hyperion on the alpha network, that doesn't carry over onto the main server. If you were to gain trillions of coins on the alpha network, obviously that doesn't carry over to the main server either. Now, I remember this exploit, and I didn't actually do it, but I remember when it was a thing. And basically it was revolving around the bazaar and the auction house. Now, people could sell items on the auction house and sell items on the bazaar on the alpha network, and then go onto the main network, the main server, and the items would appear, and you'd actually be able to collect those items and the coins from the regular auction house and bazaar on the main server. Now, of course, the alpha network basically doesn't have an economy. After all, you can go onto the alpha network when it's open and instantly have trillions and trillions of coins. You can literally just click a button and get them. So there is a non-existent economy. People regularly just give away the Hyperion and Terminator and just whatever they have just to people, because why not? It's not going to affect anything. Well, as you can imagine, when the word spread and people found out about this was a huge, massive problem, causing a ridiculous amount of inflation. Of course, it was relatively quickly patched, and then all of the coins that people had claimed were basically just taken off them. However, you would think whoever initially coded that to have the auction house on the alpha and the auction house on the main server and the same for the bazaar, you'd think that they would double check. That's the main thing, you double check just to make sure it doesn't carry over, because that's a worst case scenario. And there must have been some huge oversight there. But I guess in the end it made for nothing but a funny story. Now, the park is known for many different things. One of them would be chopping trees. Another one may be trying and failing to obtain Melody's hair. Now, something else it's also known for is for getting your Campfire badge and upgrading it. At the end of the day, it's essentially a virtually free talisman, and eventually it can be upgraded to the highest rarities, which actually is ideal, that's what you want. Now, of course, this is not a new addition. This has been in the game for years, way over 2 years. Maybe even 3, I'm not 100% sure. But that's besides the point. If you don't know how this works, basically you stand in the fire and each level sort of does a different amount of damage, and it keeps ticking and ticking and ticking, and if you survive you can take your talisman back to Ryan and then he'll upgrade your talisman. You keep doing this and eventually you can max it out. Now, of course, the limiting factor of this is basically how much health you have and how quickly you can regen. Of course, if you have more health and you can regen quickly, then this fire isn't going to do much damage to you. But of course, back in the day people didn't have as much health. Skyblock wasn't as advanced as it is today. People weren't even able to obtain the health figures that they can get now. And the same with the regeneration. So it was relatively difficult to upgrade this, as you can imagine. Now, when it was first introduced, there was actually a glitch where if you survived the first tick of damage, you then survive the whole thing. So people were able to basically survive the first tick and very, very easily max out the talisman, which is interesting. Now, of course, to have actually benefited from this, you would have had to be pretty quick onto the update, and pretty much an OG player. It was patched relatively quickly. What could possibly be better than entering a dark auction in a completely empty lobby, having no competition at all for the items? Surely it can't get any better than that. Imagine when you bid on those items, you weren't actually charged. Well, believe it or not, this was actually a real thing. When the personal bank was first introduced into Skyblock, there was a pretty big exploit. And when the personal bank was first introduced, you could actually interact with the personal bank in dark auctions. Now, if you're in a dark auction and you actually withdrew money from your personal bank during the dark auction and then bid, basically it wouldn't charge you. None of the money would be taken, and then you could just deposit the money back into your bank. Which means you could basically pay nothing for an item. Yeah, seriously. Unfortunately, this lasted for a grand total of one dark auction after the personal bank was introduced, so they were pretty quick to patch it. And it's probably for the best. That would have been really bad. Now, us Skyblock players aren't strangers to hearing about wipes. People have just been playing, I don't know, whatever it is, dungeons or anything, and then something happens and everything gets wiped. It might have even happened to you. It's never happened to me, but I've definitely heard of it happening to a lot of players. Sometimes these players get their items reimbursed if they can prove, or sometimes they simply don't. Now, honestly, I've always wondered how this even happens. Like, it just seems so alien. Like, how could that even happen? What sort of feature has been put into the game that has accidentally made this happen? It's just kind of crazy. I might have the answers for some cases. Now, this is patched now, so don't worry. But basically, if you were just playing Skyblock, and majority of the time when you die, you usually take more damage than you have health. However, if you take exactly the same amount of damage as you have health, at one point you will be presented with a vanilla Minecraft death screen, which obviously gives you the option to respawn and exit to the menu and so on. Now, believe it or not, at that point, if you click to respawn, you basically get wiped. Your inventory, your ender chests, and your pet items are completely wiped if you respawn at that point, which is kind of insane. The only things that were really safe were things actually on players' items, so in chests and so on. Now you might be thinking, well, that seems incredibly rare. At what point are you going to take the exact same damage as you actually have health, and how would you ever know if that happened? Or, there's so many questions. Now, this mostly occurred in dungeons by crushers dealing true damage, or endstone protectors using the slam ability, which also dealt true damage. Well, there was a way to get around it. At that point, if you actually did encounter this and you got the vanilla Minecraft death screen, you could simply Alt F4 the game and you wouldn't get wiped. However, if you didn't know about this, you'd probably be a bit confused as to why you got a vanilla Minecraft death screen, but you wouldn't really know what to do. And of course, at that point, a lot of people just press respawn, which was obviously the worst thing they could possibly do, but they didn't know that. Have you ever just wanted to enjoy a nice spot of fishing, but there's that one guy who's constantly annoying you, standing in front of you, sending you messages in the chat, doing whatever they possibly can just to get on your nerves? Well, back in the day, if you were here fishing with your fishing rod with the bobber in the water, then griefers would only need a Dreadlord sword. They could right click and the wither skulls would actually fling the bobber out of the water, basically meaning that your fishing is stopped. This is patched. But yeah, I don't fish at all, so it wouldn't have affected me, but however, I can imagine this being pretty annoying. Remember this guy? Well, some of you might not. For those of you who aren't aware, this is Mayor Dante, Skyblock's first and, I guess, maybe not, but the first and only dictator in Hypixel Skyblock, okay? Unless there's another one in the future. This guy made Skyblock players' lives miserable for a short period of time. He did things like increased auction house taxes, decreased sunlight to stop sunburn, which is really strange. He made you pay fees when you travelled between islands. There were so many strange perks that he had. Now, at one point, if you typed /kill Dante, right, it would literally spawn a Dante and kill it. Seriously. Now, similarly, there was actually a command that was /slime test. You would run the command and it would spawn a slime, and it was basically used to stress test servers. Now, this would work an infinite amount of times, so you can imagine if it's used to stress test servers, people could exploit this, spawn a ton of these slimes anywhere they wanted, and it would basically have led to a lot of crashes. It would have been really funny to see that, however, it would have been pretty annoying, so I'm glad that's fixed. Sure, most people have heard of a personal compactor, but how about a personal deleter? Well, yeah, this is an actual thing. I mean, I guess it's probably not used as much as a personal compactor, and it's not as useful. It's still a thing though. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a mythic accessory. Now, what this does is basically if you pick up an item that you've put in the personal deleter, it instantly deletes that specific item. Anyway, if we, for instance, put a carrot in our personal deleter, and then go ahead and buy a carrot, it should instantly delete it, right? I mean, there's a carrot. It's a carrot. If we just, maybe if we pick it up. Alright, okay, there we go. Maybe pick it up and it instantly deletes it. Okay, that's how it works. Well, an update released. The Spider's Den was revamped. And there was a pretty big issue. So say for instance if you put an iron sword in your personal deleter, just a regular plain iron sword, you've literally just crafted it, put it in your personal deleter. That will then delete anything that has the iron sword skin. For example, a Hyperion, a giant sword, anything. Now, it is a little bit baffling to me, like, in what situation you would ever need to put a plain vanilla iron sword in your personal deleter, but I guess there was some people who had that in the personal deleter, and there was also people who had Hyperions and got them deleted. Now, I can't see if people did actually get their items reimbursed, but this is, yeah, not good. Of course, it was fixed pretty quickly, but yeah, bad. And we all know that the blue whale is a really, really good pet in terms of survivability. It helps you survive in many aspects of the game. It has a number of different abilities, and one of those is the bulk ability. Now, at the moment, that ability at level 100 is gain 1 defense per 20 health. However, when this pet was first introduced, the ability was actually gain 1 defense per 0.3 health. Meaning that if you paired this pet with Mastiff Armor, you could have over 90,000 defense, which is equal to around about 99.9% damage reduction, basically making them absolutely invincible. Players with 20,000 HP could basically have 18 million effective health, which kind of speaks for itself. Anyway, they were some pretty crazy exploits, and of course there are hundreds if not thousands of more. Let me know what you think the craziest exploits and glitches are in Hypixel Skyblock, or what they have been. Anyway, if you have enjoyed today's video, make sure you do leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.